The Knight's Forbidden Love. Sir Aldrich of Eldoria tightened his grip on his sword as he surveyed the battlefield, his breath misting in the cool morning air. The scent of scorched earth and blood lingered, mingling with the acrid smoke curling from the remnants of shattered homes. His muscles tensed, every fiber of his being honed for the battle ahead. Yet beneath his armor, a flicker of doubt stirred. He had heard the stories, the legends of the monstrous dragon that reduced armies to ash. Now, with his fingers clenched tightly around the hilt of his sword, he wondered, was he truly ready for what lay ahead? His heartbeat pounded in his ears, his pulse a steady drum against the silence that hung over the ruined valley like a funeral shroud. He had been told the great dragon, scourge of the east, slayer of armies, had descended upon the valley, laying waste to everything in its path. The tales spoke of a monstrous beast, scales as black as the abyss, fire hot enough to melt steel, and talons sharp enough to cut through plate armor like parchment. The destruction left in its wake was evident. The remnants of burnt-out homes, charred fields, and the eerie silence that followed devastation. Smoke still rose in lazy tendrils from the wreckage, the scent of burning wood and scorched earth thick in the air. He had trained for this moment, sharpening both skill and resolve against lesser foes. Ever since the king himself had knighted him, he had dreamt of slaying a dragon and proving his worth. Now, standing amidst the smoldering ruins of a village, his heart pounded in anticipation, his pulse quickening at the thought of what was to come. Would the battle be swift, or would he be locked in a struggle that would test the very limits of his endurance? Only time would tell. Then the beast descended. With a gust of wind that nearly knocked him off his feet, the dragon landed before him. Aldrich raised his sword, ready for the battle of his life. And then she changed. Before his very eyes, the massive dragon shrank, her formidable form dissolving like mist in the morning sun. Aldrich's breath hitched, his pulse pounding in his ears as he watched something impossible unfold before him. The beast of legend, the terror of armies, was no longer a monstrous force, but a vision of magic in motion. Her shimmering black scales melted away in a cascade of light, shifting into delicate, pale skin that seemed to glow with an unearthly radiance. His grip on his sword faltered as her massive wings folded neatly against her back, their leathery edges softening into something impossibly delicate. His mind reeled. How could the terror of nations, the scourge of warriors, now stand before him in such an ethereal, fragile form? He had envisioned a brute force, a beast capable of unimaginable destruction, yet here she was, silent, composed, and exuding a presence that unsettled him more than any dragon's roar ever could. His heart pounded, torn between instinct and intrigue, unsure whether to strike or simply marvel at the impossible. Dark raven hair spilled over her shoulders, catching the silver gleam of the moonlight, each strand moving as though enchanted by unseen forces. The very air around her shimmered, humming with residual magic, and for a brief, fleeting moment, Aldrich felt as if he had stepped beyond the realm of men into something older, something divine. His mind screamed at him to act, to fight, to strike, but his body refused to obey. He had spent years preparing to slay a beast, not to stand in stunned silence before a creature of such impossible beauty. His breath came in short gasps as he tried to reconcile the monstrous dragon with the woman standing before him. And then, as if to shatter the enchantment, she opened her eyes. Her black scales melted away in a cascade of shimmering light, revealing smooth, pale skin that seemed to glow with an almost ethereal radiance. Her wings folded neatly against her back, their leathery texture softening into something impossibly delicate. As if caught in a gentle breeze, dark raven hair cascaded down past her shoulders, each strand gleaming under the moonlight. Aldrich's breath caught in his throat. The transformation was not one of a mere monster into a human. It was something almost divine, as though magic itself had decided to weave beauty from the very essence of the dragon. Then she opened her eyes. molten gold, burning yet mesmerizing, locked onto him, filled with an emotion he could not yet name. In them, he saw not just intelligence and strength. The dragon, no longer a beast but a young woman with wings, crossed her arms. Aldrich bristled, straightening his shoulders. You just look so young. I expected something more fearsome, more monstrous. She smirked. Of course. That makes all the difference. His ego stung, but he refused to let it show. You have terrorized these lands, dragon. I have come to put an end to your destruction. She rolled her eyes. Terrorized, you mean I protected my home? I only fight those who seek to kill me. She stepped forward, causing Aldrich to instinctively tighten his grip on his sword. What do they even call you, knight? Sir Aldrich of Eldoria. And you, little one? She hesitated before responding, her expression guarded. Celine. Aldrich scoffed. Celine. Not exactly the name of a mighty dragon. Her eyes narrowed. And Aldrich isn't exactly the name of a mighty knight. They stood there, sizing each other up. Aldrich had expected a beast, a monster, not her. She was beautiful, but that didn't matter. She was still the enemy. Celine let out a sigh, folding her arms. I don't want to fight, knight. I never have. But humankind leaves me no choice. Every time I try to live in peace, another so-called hero comes for my head. I only defend myself. If we could reach an agreement, I would take it. Aldrich's grip tightened on his sword, his pride flaring. An agreement? You expect me to trust you? You've burned villages, left destruction in your wake. I will not be the fool who spares the monster. Celine's golden eyes hardened. And I will not be the fool who lays down her life for the arrogance of men. The first battle was chaotic. Aldrich had spent years training against beasts of legend, but nothing had prepared him for fighting a dragon that fought back with both claws and wit. Celine was frustratingly skilled. She dodged his strikes effortlessly, her laughter ringing in his ears as she took to the sky, only to dive and knock him flat on his back. It wasn't just her agility that confounded him. It was her uncanny ability to predict his movements as if she had been studying him long before they met. Is that all the great knight can do? She taunted, hovering just out of reach. I'm almost disappointed. I expected a warrior, not a clumsy boy swinging a sword. Aldrich gritted his teeth, forcing himself to his feet. I'm just getting started. She arched an eyebrow, her golden eyes gleaming with mischief. I certainly hope so. I'd hate for our little game to end so soon. And yet, despite their clashes, neither delivered a killing blow. There was something else at play, something deeper than mere battle. Aldrich hesitated, his blade hovering mid-strike, his breath catching as he watched Celine move, with a grace that defied logic. Why did he hold back? Why did she? Celine's golden eyes flickered with something unreadable, a silent question passing between them, as her claws stopped just short of his chest. In that moment, an unspoken truth simmered beneath their rivalry, one neither of them was ready to admit. A silent understanding passed between them with every strike, every dodge. They were warriors, yes, but perhaps not true enemies. Days turned to weeks. They clashed over battlefields, their encounters becoming almost routine. Villagers whispered about the strange rivalry between the cocky knight and the beautiful dragon woman. Some even speculated it was not hatred that kept them fighting, but something else entirely. Aldrich refused to acknowledge it. He still found her insufferable. Her smugness, her mocking words, the way she always seemed one step ahead. Every battle left him fuming, yet strangely exhilarated. He would tell himself it was frustration at not yet defeating her, but deep down he knew it was more than that. He had never faced an opponent like Celine, one who challenged him not only in combat but in spirit. She was powerful, intelligent, and frustratingly clever. And yet, despite his best efforts, he had yet to best her. Still, he tried to push aside the way his heart quickened when she flashed him a teasing smirk, or how her golden eyes gleamed with mischief whenever she dodged one of his attacks effortlessly. It was easier to cling to his pride, to pretend he still saw her as the enemy. As for Celine, she found Aldrich equally frustrating. He was arrogant, brash, and far too eager to prove himself. Yet there was something undeniably compelling about him. He was different from the knights who came before him, more determined, more stubborn. And yet, he never truly sought to kill her. Even when she had been at his mercy, he hesitated, his sword wavering just enough to make her wonder why. She told herself she only continued these battles for the challenge, for the thrill of the fight. But then there were those rare moments, between the clashing of steel and fire, where his eyes locked onto hers with something unreadable, something she wasn't sure she was ready to name. Something was changing between them, something neither could quite explain but neither could ignore. The turning point came under a blood-red sky. Aldrich had been ambushed. A rival kingdom, greedy for the wealth hidden within the mountains Celine called home, had sent their warriors not just to slay the dragon, but to raze the land, strip the mountains of their resources and leave nothing behind. Aldrich, despite his own history with Celine, could not ignore the injustice before him. He found himself standing between the invaders and the dragon they sought to destroy. Celine, battered and cornered, met his gaze, fire still burning in her golden eyes. "What are you doing? This is your chance to be rid of me. Why do you fight for my home?" Aldrich set his jaw. "Because it's your home. And because if they succeed here, my kingdom will be next. We may not have chosen to be allies, but we have no choice now." For the first time, she did not mock him. Instead, she studied him for a long moment before giving a slow nod. "Then let us make them regret ever setting foot in these lands." With that, Aldrich turned his sword on the invaders, fighting with a fury he hadn't known he possessed. Celine, after a moment's hesitation, let out a mighty roar, her wings unfurling as she took to the sky. Flames rained down upon the enemy as she moved like a shadow above them, cutting off their escape, while Aldrich and his fellow warriors struck from the ground. For the first time, they fought together. Side by side, they cut through the ranks of enemy warriors, their movements a dazzling storm of steel and fire. Aldrich deflected a sword meant for Celine, his blade finding its mark in a heavily armored foe, while Celine soared above, unleashing a torrent of fire that sent their enemies scattering. The air was thick with the scent of burning wood and charred steel, the clang of weapons, and the cries of fallen soldiers echoing in their ears. An enemy archer aimed at Aldrich's exposed side, but before he could react, Celine swept down in a blur of motion, her talons ripping the bow from the soldier's hands before knocking him unconscious with a powerful strike of her wings. Aldrich barely had time to acknowledge her save before he was forced to parry another blow. They moved as though they had fought together for years, an unspoken trust binding them in battle. The exhaustion burned in their limbs, but neither relented. At one point, Aldrich nearly fell when a warhammer struck his shield, sending him stumbling. Celine landed beside him, her golden eyes flashing. "Not today, knight," she breathed before propelling herself back into the fray. They had spent so long trying to outmatch each other, but now together, they were unstoppable. Aldrich covered Celine when she landed, her claws tearing through armored foes, while she shielded him from arrows with her wings. After so long trying to outmatch each other, they now fought as one, their movements a seamless dance of steel and fire. Together, they were an unbreakable force, striking down enemy after enemy with an unspoken understanding that bound them more strongly than any rivalry ever could. By the time the battle was over, both were exhausted, bruised, but alive. The enemy had fled, their plans to mine and conquer thwarted. The land, though scarred, still stood. They sat side by side on the battlefield, breathing heavily, watching the first hints of dawn creep over the mountains. Celine finally broke the silence. "You saved me, and my home." Aldrich ran a hand through his sweat-drenched hair. Don't make a big deal out of it. She smirked. Oh, I will. He groaned. You're insufferable. And you're arrogant. He turned to face her only to find her golden eyes already on him. There was something different in her gaze now, something softer, something he couldn't quite name. And for once, he didn't fight it. As the days passed, they met not as enemies, but as something else entirely. Their banter became less biting, their encounters less hostile. There were moments when their hands brushed, moments where their gazes lingered too long, moments where silence spoke louder than words. One night, under a sky full of stars, Aldrich finally asked, "What would you do if you didn't have to fight anymore?" His voice was quieter than usual, uncertain, as if the question itself was something forbidden. Celine stilled, her golden eyes reflecting the constellations above them. She exhaled slowly, as if tasting the weight of the words before she answered. I don't know. No one's ever asked me that before. For so long, battle has been all I've known. If I were to stop, who would I be? Aldrich studied her, seeing her in a way he hadn't before. She wasn't just a warrior or a dragon. She was someone who had never been given a choice. A pang of something unrecognizable twisted in his chest. Maybe you could decide that for yourself. Maybe we both could. Celine was quiet for a long time before she answered. I don't know. No one's ever asked me that before. I never imagined a future beyond battle. He hesitated before reaching for her hand, his fingers trembling slightly as they met hers. Maybe we could find out together. She looked at him, truly looked at him, and then, for the first time, she smiled. A real, genuine smile, one that reached her golden eyes, melting away the barriers she had long kept in place. Aldrich felt something shift within him, something undeniable. Slowly, hesitantly, he lifted a hand to her cheek, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath his fingers. Celine did not pull away. Instead, she leaned in, just a fraction, just enough. And then, at long last, he closed the space between them. The kiss was tentative at first, a meeting of uncertain hearts, lingering with all the battles they had fought and the barriers they had broken. Aldrich hesitated, his mind racing, yet his body betraying the walls he had tried so hard to maintain. Celine, too, felt the weight of the moment, her breath hitching as she allowed herself to finally let go of the war between them. For so long, they had fought with steel and fire, their rivalry built on pride and defiance. Now, their weapons were set aside, replaced with something far more powerful. Vulnerability. As the moment stretched, the kiss deepened. No longer hesitant but certain, carrying the weight of battles endured, of trust earned, of something unspoken blossoming into something undeniable. When they finally pulled away, breathless and unsteady, Aldrich pressed his forehead against hers, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Well, that was unexpected. Celine chuckled softly, her golden eyes alight with something warm, something new. Not entirely. And in that quiet, stolen moment beneath the stars, they both understood. They had fought for so long, only to find that in each other, they had won something far greater than victory. In that single embrace, the knight and the dragon, once sworn enemies, became something else entirely. Something neither had ever dared to dream. Something that would change them forever.